All right. Welcome to COMP229, Web Application Development in the summer 2022 semester at Centennial. And it's week one of our course. And this week we're going to be doing a course intro, setup, and installation. We've got lots of stuff to do. And always, as you're going to see, very little time to spend together to do everything that we want to do for the course. So I'm your course instructor. That's me. My name is Tom Styliopoulos. I have been teaching adults since 2011. I've got a background in software engineering and game development, and I do a lot more game stuff lately than anything else. But I'm one of I would say things that I love is programming with JavaScript specifically and TypeScript. So you're going to see that this week and this semester, we're going to be talking about JavaScript, advanced topics in JavaScript and in TypeScript. So we're going to be talking about those things this week. So a lot of new stuff for many of you. Some of you have done TypeScript and those kind of things before, or JavaScript, hopefully. And if you have, that's awesome. That's going to give you a leg up on the things that we're doing. If you haven't, don't worry about it, because I'm going to go through it with you as if you've never done it before. All right, so that's the way it's going to be. So that is what we're doing. So what is this course about? This course is about learning how to, kind of program JavaScript everywhere. So web application development has really progressed over the last several years. And nowadays, the things that we want to focus on are things like a back-end server-side scripting, which is usually done with Node.js. We've moved away from PHP. We'll talk about that over the next few weeks. And typically, what we want to do is have a Node.js backend, which is JavaScript, as well as an Express middleware, which allows us to serve up files and JavaScript on the front end. So we're going to do some JavaScript today, and so on. And that's really what we're talking about. At the end of this course, I want you guys all to be full stack developers. Okay, so that's kind of a tall order, because again, if you've never done, kind of JavaScript, any kind of advanced JavaScript, and I'd like to be soft on this one, but I want to say it like this. Typically, what you guys all learn is baby JavaScript. I'm laughing only because when I think about baby JavaScript, it's like I know how to do a document.getElement by ID, and that's what I know how to do. That's not the JavaScript we're doing here. Okay, this is not the kind of JavaScript we're doing. We're doing JavaScript when you're actually using classes and objects. You're going to do a lot more functional programming this semester. And so it's very different from the JavaScript that you've learned already, potentially. All right, so we'll talk about that. Maybe some of you are, more advanced than others, but typically that's what we're doing. So the mean stack was very, very popular, and we're going to go over this a little bit. Angular by far was at one point the most popular front-end framework, but this can be replaced with something like React. Okay, so React is a I would say more popular front end nowadays than Angular. And React so it would be, instead of the mean stack, it would be the MERN stack, MERN. And what it does is we just take a look at these, at the technologies, MongoDB, which is the M, right? Express.js, which is the E, and either Angular or React, which is the A or the R, and then finally Node.js, which is the N. Okay, so that's how we make up the mean or MERN stack, okay? There's other stacks you can use as well, and we'll talk about them as well throughout the course. A lot of times you guys are used to something like the AMP stack, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. We're not going to be doing any of PHP this course. It's all JavaScript, all right? So that's the thing that we're going to be doing. The books that we're going to be using some of them are a little older, but this one is still good. Being Web Development, it was published in 2016, but a lot of the concepts are almost identical today. Beginning Angular and TypeScript from 2020, still relevant, and not much has changed on the Angular front in terms of what's happening. TypeScript has really evolved, as well as Pro Angular 9, which again is from 2020, but still very relevant in terms of if you wanted to do Angular. Okay, so those are the books that I recommend but please don't buy anything. I'm not asking you to buy any books. You can get them from the library for free, online library, if you really want them. And I don't recommend you buy anything because the course shell covers everything that you need to be successful. All right, in terms of evaluations, how am I going to evaluate you in this course? So this is, remember, I'm evaluating you on, are you a good full stack developer? That's really what the evaluation is going to be, which is by the end of the semester. You're going to have a couple of assignments that you're going to be doing that are individual. So this first part up here is all individual stuff. So you can see that assignment 1, which is you're going to create a portfolio site with Express.js. It's called the Express Portfolio. It's going to be released next week, and it's going to be due 2 weeks later. Okay, that thing is individual assignment. Assignment 2 is also individual. You're going to be doing authentication with Express, and your midterm test, which is a practical test, is also individual. So you can see that that's worth 45% of your grade, right? Individual marks. And in the second half, what you're going to have is you're going to have teamwork that you're going to be doing. There's a team project you're going to be doing in the second half using the technologies that I'm going to be talking about and working with you on in the first half. So the first half you learn all the technologies, and the second half you apply it by creating a small project with you and your team. So that's what we're doing. In terms of our schedule, it's going to look like this. This week is all around an intro to the course. We're going to be talking about version control with GitHub. That's what we're going to be using. We're going to do a bit of a JavaScript review today and mostly setup. Some third-party NPM installations we're going to do as well on your system. So we're going to be talking about those things. And that's where we're starting. We're starting week 1. Week 2 is an intro to mean, how we're going to be talking about that next week. We're going to be building a simple Node.js server, that kind of stuff. And you're going to be given your first assignment details next week. Again, it's individual. Week 3, we won't have class during Monday. All right. So normally we get together on Mondays. But if I'm not wrong, week 3, which is, if I look at the schedule, falls on the 23rd. If I'm not wrong, that is Victoria Day all day. So that means that we won't have class on that Monday. But I will be recording everything on the Wednesday. So please, if you can attend the Wednesday, attend on Wednesday. If not, please watch the recordings that I will be sharing with you, so that to have everything you need for that week. And that is week 3. Week 4, where we're going to be talking about MongoDB and NoSQL, more about CRUD operations in week 5. And by week 6, we're going to be doing authentication with Passport and JWT, most likely. So that is kind of the first 6 weeks of semester. Week 7, you're going to do your practical test. We'll cover just Angular, not some React. I will cover React with you, Gregory, myself. But the course shell has Angular in it. So if you're someone who wants to do Angular in the second half, what I'll be working with is either Angular or React. You'll have a chance to make your project with either technology. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. And what we'll do is we'll build up the React front end together for those people who want to do that in the second half of the semester. So typically what we normally do is in the second half, we only do Angular. But, and that's what's been recorded. But this semester, I'm going to be introducing React. So that way we'll be doing React instead of Angular in person. So live sessions will be in React. And recorded sessions will be with Angular. And what I'll be doing is I'll be recording the React stuff so we can carry it forward for future course generations. Really, that's our schedule. And week 14 is our final presentation. That's why it's not listed here. But we're going to be doing final presentations week 13 and 14, chances are. Kay Ying says, which is more popular in Canada, job market, React or Angular? And it's React, I would say right now. Angular is, and we'll talk about Angular a bit. Angular is created for developers by developers, which is interesting. It's kind of the developer framework, if you really, if you want to think about it that way. It's been developed by Google and Microsoft. That is, that's what Angular is. React, again, very, very popular framework, and it's more declarative type programming, which you're going to see. So very different than what we've seen with Angular, but it's you'll see how it's there's a lot of similarities now between React and Angular, and it's not that difficult to learn. But I would say that Angular is more of a more opinionated. It's very opinionated compared to React. React you can kind of plug in, but we're going to be working with React in the second half. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. Let's move on to some of the things that we're doing this semester. And by the way, guys, I'm going to also check for your understanding in this course. A lot of times I'll sit there and say things like, "Are you with me?" I say that a lot. So when I say, "Are you with me?" what I'm hoping is that you're going to go to your reactions at the bottom, and you're going to put a check mark. I want to see a check mark now. So here we go. Ready? Here's the first one. Are you with me? Use the check mark so I can see it. I see Panth did it. There we go. Amit and Alexandru. The thumbs up is okay. I'm okay with a thumbs up, but if the reactions are very important because I get to know how many of you out of all of you are with me. And it's important to understand that because I move pretty quickly when I do my tech demonstrations with you, and I want to make sure that you guys are good. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much for that feedback. It looks like most of you know how to use Zoom. Thank you. All right. So let's move on to the meat and bones of what we're doing today. So again, today's all around installations, how to use it. So what you have is you have a little reaction at the bottom of your screen, right? There's kind of a button kind of towards the bottom, and there'll be a reactions button. And you can see that there is a thumbs up, right? And a check mark, right? So that's what you want to do. You can also raise your hand if you need to ask a question. Okay, no problem. All right, thanks guys. All right, let's continue. So that's what our schedule is. It's pretty crazy, but let's move on to some of the tech things that I want to talk about today. One thing I'd like you guys to do, if you haven't had a chance to do it already, is I want you guys to connect with me on Discord. So I use Discord primarily for communications, right? So I know some of you have done it this morning. I've kind of put the link for Discord on our kind of our first week. And if you scroll down to where it says, which is week 1, let's make sure I'm in week 1. There we go. Here's our week 1. If you scroll down, there's a couple of things that you're going to see in the course shell. One of them is it talks about the evolution of JavaScript and ECMAScript version control that we're going to be using, this week, as well as a bunch of installation tasks that we're going to do today. This is the stuff that we're doing today. Okay. And there's going to be some variations here because things have changed since I published this course a couple of years ago. So again, it's always good to come online and talk to me, but there's one that's here, which is the Discord invite link. Let me just copy that link here and I'll put that on the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to go up on the course shell and use that, let's actually go and copy that properly. So let's go there. And that's not good. Please accept that link. Okay, how about that? And you should be able to do that. If I can't do it here because it's kind of an embedded link on the system. If you accept the link, what it's going to do is going to put you inside of our Discord server. Our Discord server is very simple. I gotta talk about this a little bit. So you can see that there are quite a few channels here. I'm just going to try and put it out of screen so you don't see people's names. But more or less, you can see that people are coming in play, and there are going to be several sections here. It doesn't just cover our section; it covers other sections from the summer. So we are section 2 and section 1, but there's other sections that I've also created stuff for. There might be other professors that we might see here with their groups that are coming inbound or not. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing here. A lot of times we'll have some discussions here, and I've left some discussions up from previous semesters, but any kind of discussions or topics, you can also DM me directly If you want to, again, in terms of availability, I want to talk about this right now. I'm pretty good answering your or responding to your questions, your queries. Usually I respond within 1 to 2 business days if it's an email. But if you kind of connect with me on Discord, most nights until about 8 p.m., I'm pretty good to respond. Okay. After that, like you guys, I have things I got to do. Right. So don't expect me to respond to you after 8 p.m. On Discord. That's going to let you know that just ahead of time. And the other thing is on the weekends, I'm kind of spotty. I'm here and there on Discord because I'm doing other things other than school. So during the week, I'm pretty good, but on weekends, not so good. If there is a evaluation, some kind of assignment or whatever that's due on the weekend, a lot of times I get bombed by Discord things like a professor can have an extension or something like that on a Sunday night. Let's say it happens a lot of times. I probably won't respond, right? And not because I don't want to respond to you, but because, like I said, weekends are kind of spotty for me in terms of availability. And there's a lot of times where, on the weekend, as an example, that especially just before the evaluation is due, typically I won't respond. I won't also respond to extension requests on the day of. As an example, please talk to me about an extension if you need an extension for whatever reason earlier on. Typically, my answer will be no, unless there's going to be something like we all, let's say all of us come to a determination that we need more time. This is like a class thing, not an individual thing, typically. Or unless you have some kind of medical reason, obviously that's always valid, or something else like that, that's serious, then we can talk about it. But if it's something else like, you're overloaded with other courses or something like that, that's normal. So typically extension requests will not be honored, typically. I'm just be honest, because there's just so many things going on. I also work well with the other professors. So if, let's say, for example, Professor Tiago decides that he's going to extend the class, then I'll do the same. So we'll try and work together. Okay, so it's not like I'm going to be different than he is. Okay, so thank you for joining the Discord server. I'm seeing that there's a bunch of new messages. A bunch of you guys have joined. Thank you so much for doing that, because that's going to help us with our communication as this class is completely remotely delivered, right? So that's the first thing. So again, this is typically our YouTube video link. This is where that is. So that's what that thing is right there. And again, if ever you've missed a class, you can always come to the section that says live session and look in there. There'll be a video of the class that's recorded on Mondays only. I don't record on Wednesdays, okay? All right, so what do we want to do right now? So what we want to take care of is, first things first, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code for this course. So the first thing I'd like you to do before anything else is please download and install Visual Studio Code. Now, the Visual Studio Code is cross-platform, and here's the link for it for you guys on here on Zoom, and I'm also going to put it up on YouTube for those people that are watching on YouTube, Visual Studio Code. And what I want you guys to do is please install it, right? Now, some people have asked, well, can I use Visual Studio, like Visual Studio 2022 or 2019? And the answer is no. Please don't use that. It's, number one, it's not cross-platform. So if you're a Mac user, can't really use it the same way as you would on a PC. So that's kind of where it's different. And actually, you know what? I find that Visual Studio Code is optimized for web development. So that's the first thing. Visual Studio Code has a bunch of extensions. All right. So one thing that we're going to be going over, and I'm just going to go over Visual Studio Code with you in a second, but this is how it would typically look. I'm just going to close out this project. Right. So you can see that Visual Studio Code, when you start off, and I'm just going to view the so this is just, just going to go to help here. There we go. What's new in bookmarks? I'm just going to go to get started, which it kind of looks like this. When you first start off, you might see a get started screen. You could also see release notes a lot of times, where you might see April 2022 release notes where they first came out. Again, you don't really need these release notes. but they're quite good in terms of the things that Visual Studio Code has added in terms of all the things that that it's done from from one release to the next. So I think Visual Studio Code is awesome because it gives you great code hinting and code tooling when it comes to working with JavaScript, which is what we're going to be primarily doing this semester. So please, that's why we're downloading it. When you're done downloading and installing Visual Studio 2022, check mark, please, on our participants panel. Please do that now. So as soon as you're finished doing it, check mark. And I'll wait a little bit longer until most of you have it done. And we can't progress without it, so that's why I need you guys to do it. So please leave your check mark up there. Don't clear it up, because then I can know if you're done. Right now I have 10 out of 26 of you. I'd like to get at least more than half of you completed before you get moving. Oh, that's good. Thank you for that. All right, so that's the first part. So first part is you've installed Visual Studio Code. Okay, that's number one. Part two. So once you've got this done, you can close down all your windows. It can look like this. Just a little bit of a tour of Visual Studio Code while the rest of you are installing. Looks like most of you are done now. On the left, you have your Explorer window, right? And this is kind of very similar to your File Explorer because it has direct access, as an example, to your files. All right, so that's one thing that's really, really cool. You can search. You also have a built-in or version control or source control with Git and GitHub typically is included, debugging support as well as extensions. I'm going to go to extensions and I'm going to talk about some extensions that I want you to use for this semester. And there's some stuff, obviously, like you see something like this, like bracket pair colorizer 2, those kind of things. There's a lot of stuff that gets deprecated over the time because Visual Studio Code starts incorporating some of this stuff and it's built in. So we're going to be talking about some of these extensions, later on. For now, don't worry about it. Just make sure you have this installed. Okay, so now that you have Visual Studio Code installed, thank you for that. The next piece is most of you will probably not have Git for Windows working. If you're a Mac user, pretty much you can skip this step. I'm just going to I'm going to clear up that feedback. But what I want you to do now is I want you to go to the command prompt. So if you type in the command prompt, just type CMD at your start button. So you go to the start button and just type in CMD. And when you do that, it brings up the command prompt here. And if you do that, and if you can do something like git ---- version and have some kind of version of Git locally, then you're good to go, right? So notice that the newest version of Git is 2.36.1, and I have 2.35.2. How do I do it? Does it matter? Can I update my Git for Windows right now? Well, let's do it together and see what happens, right? Even if you have it installed, let's do it together. So I'm going to download this for Windows. Notice it says 64-bit Git for Windows setup. If you're a Mac user, again, you don't have to do this because you have, if you're Linux, because you most likely have Git installed in your terminal. And what you can do is I'm just going to download it and into my downloads folder. There it is. And when I'm done, I'm going to run it. And let's run it together. Can you send the link for this? Sure, I can. git-scm.com. There it is. And let's wait till you're here with me. So then when you're here, the first thing is you're going to see this. The download is very quick. And it says, I'm not going to just show new options. I'm going to make sure that this is unchecked. If you've done this before, it's going to show you this little check mark. If you've never done it before, it probably won't show you this one. But I want to click on next. And the first thing is what you're going to see is you're going to see a bunch of options here where it says, do I want additional icons on the desktop? The answer is yes, I do. Sure. Windows Explorer integration. Do I want that? Yes, I do. Please include Windows Explorer integration. Git large file support. I don't really need that. I can keep that unchecked. I'm definitely not going to check daily for Git for Windows. I don't think that's required. And I'm not going to add, it says new. It says add a Git bash profile to Windows Terminal. That's not bad. Let's have that checked and see what happens there. Okay. It requires at least 262 megabytes of disk space. This has grown considerably since I first started. Let's continue and click next. Rojan says, so Mac has it, so no need to go through it. No, if you're a Mac person, leave it as is, please. You can pull up your terminal on a Mac and you're good to go. And I'll go through that in a second with you. So next. Now notice when I click next, it says choosing the default editor used by Git. And look what comes up for me. It says you can use some different editors, but the one I like to use is Visual Studio Code. Well, you couldn't have that as an option unless you installed Visual Studio Code. So I've already done that with you, so you can please choose this one. Visual Studio Code is definitely a good option, so please do that. And then click next. The next one is, there's some options, okay? So it says adjusting the name of the initial branch in your repositories. So one is let Git decide, and the other one is override the default branch name with some other branch name. I'm going to use let Git decide and click next. And the next one, it says adjusting your path environment. Okay, so it says use Git from Git bash only. No, don't do that one. Git from the command line and also from third-party software. I think this is a good one to use, right? And the next one is use Git and optional Unix tools from the command prompt. All right, so things like find and sort. Just leave it here with Git from the command line. Click next. I would definitely use bundled open SSH. So the stuff that's bundled right here. Panth, it's Visual Studio Code is what I would use. And then click next. And then it's going to say for choosing HTTPS transport backend, again, OpenSSL is fine for that one. Click next. And then in configuring the line ending conversions, I would say the first one is fine. Check out Windows style, commit Unix style line endings. This is fine. And then click next. And this one is, I definitely do not want to use min-tty. I want to use Windows default console window right here. This is the one I want, the second option. Click next. And for this one that says choose the default behavior of git pull, I'm going to just use default. Click next. Now this is very important, guys. Okay, very, very important. Please make sure you select Git Credential Manager right here, this Git Credential Manager. Please accept this one and click next. And then finally, I've checked both enable file system caching as well as enable symbolic links. Make sure you have those two checked. Okay. And then do not check any experimental settings. Please do not check these two. Okay, I don't use experimental stuff. Typically, I think it can be a little bit challenging. So sorry, Pao Hung says, sorry, I missed the one choosing the default. I'll go back in a second through all of them. Now the next one is install. If you're ready, just click the install button. If you're not, I'm going to go through them again just one more time, just to make sure that you guys are good with everything. So again, I'm going to go all the way back to use Visual Studio as the Git's default editor. Next is for adjusting the name of the initial branch, let Git decide. After that, adjusting your path, Git from the command line, also third-party software. Choosing the SSH executable, use bundled OpenSSH. Finally, for choosing HTTPS transport, OpenSSL. Configuring the line ending conversions with checkout Windows style, commit Unix style. Configuring the terminal emulator is using Windows default console window, and choosing the default behavior of git pull as default, fast forward or merge, and choose the credential helper, which is git credential helper. Finally, check the configuring extra options. Both these should be checked, but do not check the experimental options, and then click install. Let's do that together now. Let's install and see what happens. So when I do that, what it's going to do is going to remove previous versions. Now it's really important that if you have something like Visual Studio Code open, you close it down before it's complete. And any other command prompts, please close them down. Okay, Gregory says, I already have Git, but I'm not sure if I follow all those parameters you're choosing. It's okay, don't worry about it. As long as you have Git, you're good to go. I'm just doing it to show people who don't have Git what to do. All right, I don't care about viewing release notes. I'm going to click finish, but the most important thing is if I go to command prompt now, if I go to my command prompt and type in git minus version, I should have the latest version or something like this. Okay, so now going back to what we said before, I'm just going to go back to here. Do you have something like this showing right on your command prompt? And if you're a Mac user, I'm just going to remote into my Mac for a second. And just give me 1 second while I do that for you. I'm not going to do Mac stuff too much because I know there's more PC users than Mac users typically. However, for the first installation steps, I think these things are important to do. So just give me 1 second while I remote in, and then we'll go from there. Okay, let's make sure everything's closed. No, you're good, Martin. Leave it alone. If you're okay with that, like again, I'm presenting this option to you for those people who don't have it. So here's my Mac. Okay, so if I'm on a Mac, I'm going to run terminal. So here's my terminal on the Mac, and if I was to run git minus version on the Mac, you can see that I've got 2.33.1. I'm fine. Okay, anything like this is okay. Because then I can do git commands. Okay, so that's what it would look like on the Mac. And like I said, most Mac Linux installations have git installed. You don't have to do anything. All right, so I'm going to go back now and ask you this. So the people who've already checkmarked, leave your checkmark there. Are you ready with me? Are you with me? Do you have git installed? Can you see this, or do you have an error? If you have an error, please put an X instead of a checkmark. Okay, because I want to make sure I can help you out. Okay, looks like 19 out of 26 of you are pretty good. How about the rest? I still see some people that don't have a check mark. Please make sure you put a check mark there, guys. I want most of you to have this ready because it's going to be difficult if we can't move on. Yeah, anything like Git 232 is okay. It's okay if 232 on your Mac. I'm perfectly fine. I'm going to tell you about all the extensions in a second, Bhupinder. Just give me a second and we'll go through it. Okay. All right. So there we go. So now that we have, thank you for that feedback. And thank you for following along, guys. Really, really awesome work there. You're able to kind of follow along with me. All right. So now that we have Git installed, I think the next step is if you don't have a GitHub account, I'm just going to go into incognito window here and pull this up. I want you guys to sign up for a GitHub account. Okay, everyone needs a GitHub account in this course. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up, or if you've never used Git before, please do so now. Sign up for a GitHub account. Yeah, anything like any Git version is fine, guys. But thank you for following along. All right, so please don't hesitate to sign up for a GitHub account, guys. You need it for this course. It's super important. Okay, and every one of you is going to be in this course. All of you are programmers. All of you are going to be submitting GitHub repositories to me as we move forward. Okay, so that is the next step. So basically, kind of signing up for Git and GitHub. Okay, and when you sign up for GitHub, please choose a username and so on. One of the first labs we're going to be doing today, which is a bonus lab, is for you guys to give me your GitHub repository link. All right, we're going to be talking about that in a bit. So now that you've done that, hopefully you've signed up for GitHub already. I'm not going to check this. This is on you. But that is the next step for you guys once you have Git installed in your system. Let's go. The next step is Node.js. Okay, now I got to talk about this a little bit because sure, you could certainly, and up online, I've asked you to install Node.js on the course shell. If you look at the course shell, then when it comes to installations, you can see that we're following along nicely, setting up a GitHub account. And then I went to Node.js. And if you look online on the GitHub, on the notes that I have here, it tells you to go, and you can see that the Node.js has really moved along since then. But this is what it says up online. There's all these steps are kind of repeated online, tells you what to do, and go through and install Node and so on this way. I'm going to tell you that there's a better way of doing it at this point in time. Okay, I like this. This is okay if you did it this way, but there's a better way. And the way to do this, which is even better in my opinion, is using something called NVM. All right, so NVM is the Node version manager. Okay, Node version manager. And Node version manager is something that I want you guys to use instead of directly installing with by using Node.js download. So why is this? And by the way, notice it says here there is an install and update script right here. Just give me a second and I'll give you the link for this. But what we really want is, for most of you, all right, most of you, I want you to use NVM for Windows. All right, NVM for Windows. And there is a small project to do this. Okay, here's NVM for Windows. I'm putting the link up on the chat, please. So please go into NVM for Windows. And you can see that if you're a Mac user, I'm going to talk about this for you in a second. But if you're a Windows user, this is the perfect place to do it. Okay, so please follow the installation instructions here. Okay, so it says it has an installer. Click on Download Now, right? And when you click Download Now, it will give you NVM in the command prompt. Okay, that's what it's going to do. Okay, now this is new. Okay, so this is one thing that we're going to be doing new. If you're a Mac user, how about if you're a Mac user? And if I wanted NVM for Mac, well, let's bring up my Mac again. I'm just going to remote in on it for those people who are Mac users. Because my NVM for Mac has not been installed, so it's a perfect opportunity for us to do it together. So there we are again. And if I was to look it up for Mac, so let's go on the Mac side and look it up. And if I was to type in NVM, not Windows, but just NVM by itself, you're going to see that this is a Node version manager that I want you to grab here. And if you scroll down, it says, how do you install installation and updating? There are two options here. One of them is a curl option, which is something you can use in your command prompt. So if I click in, if I copy this one and go to my terminal, and if I was to right click and paste, then you can see that I got this curl prompt here. Let's see if it works for Mac. And if it does, we're golden. If it doesn't, then we'll know, right? And it says it's installed. And if I was to type in NVM now on the Mac, you can see that that's how easy it is to install. We're good to go, right? So that's how easy it is to install on the Mac, right? And if I was to say NVM list, this is the Mac command, you can see that I have a version that it lists through for all of my versions that have been installed, which is really awesome that it does that automatically for the Mac. For Windows, unfortunately, it does not do that. Okay, it doesn't do this, but you can also do a NVM install. Where you want to do that on the Windows side, and bear with me, guys, I know we're kind of jumping around here for a second, but let's bring up my command prompt. So for me, if I type in NVM list, you can see that I have something which is 18.1.0. That's the latest version of Node.js installed. You won't have this, you'll have nothing. So how do you install NVM? Well, I recommend you use your administrative command prompt. And the way to do that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go slow, Rojan. Are you a Mac user, Rojan, or are you a PC user? Okay, yes. Okay, so for Mac, all you do is you go to this link. This is the link you would go to for Mac, okay? And you are going to select this option right here, curl, which is this this link right here, which is, if you look at, if you scroll down, there is an installation and updating area. There is a curl link. This is the link you want here for Mac. You can just use the copy option, right? And once you copy it, you go into your terminal and then you right click and paste, right, into your Mac, and then you're good to go, okay? And once you've done that and press enter, it'll install NVM for you. Okay, that's the Mac installation. Let's go back to the Windows side now. Now that you guys have installed, you've downloaded and installed the thing for Windows, what you need to do is do a couple things. First, let's run our administrative command prompt. So if I type in CMD, notice that there is command prompt in Windows, but on the right-hand side, you'll see run as administrator. Please click this run as administrator right now. It's going to ask you for permission. You're going to give permission. And once it does, you're in your administrative command prompt. Please do that here. So for Windows, please follow the download link I gave you earlier. Yep. So the download link for Windows, for those people who need it, is here, this one. I'll type that into the chat as one more time. This is the download link for Windows, Pat, and for Whoopinder. Okay, please download this for Windows. This one right here. Download now. And when you download now, it's going to give you a download. If you click there, it's going to take you to 119, right? That's what it says. And then what you can do is if you scroll down, there is a NVM setup.exe. That's the one you want to download, right? And when you do that, it's going to place it inside of your downloads. Please follow the instructions there for NVM, okay? That's the one you want to use. I've already got NVM, but that's what you want to use there, okay? Hopefully that helps you. Once you've set up Windows, the NVM for Windows, then you need to go to your administrative command prompt, like I said. And the way to get to that is, let's follow that one more time. Go here, press in CMD, click on Run as Administrator. And when you do that, it's going to ask for permission. You should be able to still type NVM by itself. If you type in NVM, you should get this. And if I want to see the version, then I should be able to do NVM version, and I should get this 1.19. Okay, so let's stay there for a second. And by the way, on the Mac, let me go back to the Mac for a second, because I think it's important for us for people who are Mac users. I want to support them too. So if I was to do the same thing here on the Mac, you should see that it says System. Let's see what it says here. There we go, 0.39. It's totally fine, but that is okay, right? And if I do it again, NVM list on the Mac, you're going to see it's going to list down all the versions of Node that are here, and I'm going to show you how to install them and uninstall them and all that kind of stuff in a second. Okay. So, are you with me? Do you have NVM installed? If you're with me, check mark. If you're not, X. And we'll talk about how to fix your problems if you're not with me. Good, 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 good. 13, 14, 15 people. I know I'm going slow, and I apologize for some of you who are way faster than I can't see when I'm writing NVM list on Mac. Okay. I'm not sure why, Rajan. One sec, Panth. Well, I'll go through that. Okay, Rajan, so what do you mean by that when you say you can't see when I'm writing NVM list? Are you having a problem with that? Like, I can't see what you're seeing, so. Yes, it's okay. Yes, it's okay, UN, because you don't have anything yet, right? So bear with me while I get there. All right, so most of you are good. I'll come back to Rajan in a second. But let's go back to the Windows administrative command prompt here. So what I want you to do now is type in this, NVM install latest, and press enter, please. NVM install latest and press enter. I'll do the same thing on the Mac to show you what this looks like. So on the Mac side, let's go on the Mac side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into my terminal, right? And I'm going to try typing that in, NVM install latest. And if I do that, it's going to go off and that's awesome. NVM ls remote. Huh. That's interesting. NVM. It doesn't have latest. Let's be specific. Install LTS. On the Mac, it says node, NVM install node. And let's see how that is. So here is what the installation process looks like on the Mac. It's different than on Windows. On Windows, it's very simple. It's just NVM install latest. Okay, and you're good to go. You can see what this is doing. It's kind of installing the latest version of what we have, right? So if you look at if I go to the Mac, and this is for the same as Windows, if I go NVM list, then you should see different versions that are here, right? If I want to use a version, notice that version 18.1.0 is listed as there's a little arrow next to it on Mac, and that shows me the version that is active. I can uninstall previous versions like this. I can say NVM uninstall, right, as an example, version 9.8.0, and then it would potentially remove it like that, right? So NVM uninstall, let's say version 4.9.1, and it'll uninstall that, right? If it was something like that, if it was there, right? It says version is not installed. The only version that are installed are the ones that are up here. You can see that these ones there's remnants that have been here in my machine from previous times. But if I type in NVM list now, you can see that I have version 18.1 on the Mac. And if I type in, the way to test this to see your installation is working, you can type in node --version, and you can see my version is 18.1.0 on the Mac, right? If I go back to Windows now, let's go back to Windows. After I've typed this in, it'll do the same thing. If I do an NVM list on Windows, you can see that it'll look like this, 18.1.0. There's another step you may have to do on Windows, which is NVM use, and then the version, which is 18.1.0. You may have to do that. Chances are, if you've only have one installation, you won't. But if you type that in press enter, you can say now using node version 18.1.0. And the great thing about this is if I do a node --, version now, you can see that we all have version 18.1.0 installed. Okay. Siraz says, when I type that, I get NVM install latest, not found. But it said that NVM installed after copying the link. Good. So type in, for people who are using a Mac, it's not NVM install latest, it's NVM install node. Okay, that's the list. So hopefully I've covered you guys there. So NVM install node is for Mac. NVM install node, like that. Okay. But if you're a Windows user, NVM install latest is the way it's going to work. Okay, so now let's check to see, can you do this? Can you do a node --, version on Windows or Mac? You should see 18.1.0 now. Are you with me? Check mark, please. Okay, Rashan, I'm not sure why that is. That means you haven't done your installation. I'm not sure why yours is having issues, to be honest. You may have to try and do the installation again, or you may have to try, because ZSH is your terminal, right? That's your terminal window. Most of you are good. Some people haven't answered. Okay, no problem. Thank you, Roseanne. Sorry about that. But you need to install Node, or else you can't. One of the things you're going to have trouble with is later on when we do Node.js next week. You need it, or else it won't work. Okay, guys. So most of you have got it. 18 out of 26. There are some of you who haven't responded. Hopefully, you guys are close to it or ready to go. And I'm going through it this slow with you guys because it's critical that everyone has their node installed properly. Okay, it's critical. All right, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to move on now. Hopefully, again, most of you have it. I'm going to close down the administrative command prompt here. Yes, Bhupinder. But typically, like I said, for Node on Mac or Node on, I'm just going to kind of push this aside here so we don't need it. On Node on Mac or a Node for Windows, you should be ready to go. No installation is recognized. Are you Windows or Mac? Windows. So make sure you put in the commands nvm use NVM use 18.1.0 if you've installed it, right? You need to do that, or else it won't recognize. Okay. And if you haven't installed anything, you need to do an NVM install latest on Windows. All right. So you would have to do an NVM install latest first, and then do your NVM use 18.1.0, and then you're good to go. All right, I have to move on, guys. I'm so sorry. I have so many things to do with you guys. So now that I've got Node.js installed, this is kind of like important. Notice that it installed the latest version. And why is this awesome? It's really awesome to do this way for two reasons. One, everyone has the same version. Managing versions is really awesome because if I go to the command prompt, right, and let's suppose I'm working for a customer who has, or a client who has a different version of Node installed for their, for their back end, we can always install that version and use that version when I can switch to that version when it comes to installations. Let's do some third-party installations now. This is what I want all of you to do, please. Okay, so again, this is from a regular command prompt, What you're going to do is you're going to issue an npm install yarn -g. That's the first command. Okay, let's try this out. So I'm going to put that. I'm also going to type that inside the chat. npm install yarn -g. Okay, that's the first command. Let's do that. And when you do that, it's going to go out and it's going to grab everything and install it like this. Okay. By the way, if you get a minor version notice like this, don't worry about it, please. Right? You can do what it says, which is npm install -g npm at 8.9.0, but it's not really required if you get something like this, if you already have Node for whatever installed. I'm going to do the same thing on the Mac, though. Let's do the same thing. So if I did npm install yarn -g on the Mac, it's going to give you this. All right, something like looks like this. Okay, so that's what it's going to say. Okay, you can see that it works the same way on the Mac as it does on Windows machines. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Okay, and let's do it again. By the way, if you have this and you want to get rid of it, if it's bugging you like it's bugging me, if I tried this, if I did an npm install -g, you don't have to do this unless you get this message, by the way, npm at 8.9.0. Let's say I did that. It depends on your system, but it may or may not work. For example, if I do an npm - version, npm is the Node package manager that's bundled with with Node. Okay, that's what it's done. So here you can see that it worked for me. It's not going to bother me anymore. All right, so that is the first one. So we've installed yarn. No, npm should be part of Node. So can you do, Gregory, can you do Node ---- version? Can you do that? If you can't do this, then there's no npm. But what about Node? Is Node installed for you? Can you do Node ---- version? So Rajan, what you have to do is, we're using version, if you have version 16.5.0, like I said, then when you look at NVM, that's why I got you guys to use NVM, right? So let's do this together. So if I'm going to do NVM, you want to do NVM install if you're a Windows user, latest. If you're a Mac user, Node. Okay, you need to do this way. And I want you guys all to have the same version, please. Okay? Right, that's the one, Gregory. If you're a Mac user. All right? Right, so that is a problem, Rajan. If you're a Windows user, then you would do, if you look at NVM ---- help, you can see that NVM install, it says version, the version that can be specified, which is latest or LTS, you can use that. So you would do NVM install latest, no quotations, like that. Try that, please. Excellent. And once you've done that, then you need to use an NVM use. This is the next command, NVM use. Sorry, guys, I know some people are doing it. So you would do NVM use 18.1.0, and then press enter, and you'll see something that, well, you can't do it here because I'm using, I have to use administrative command prompt for this. Okay, if you don't use the administrative command prompt, you're going to get this a lot of times. Okay, so now that we've installed NVM, guys, I need to move on. I'm so sorry. But if we go to the next one, I've installed Yarn. I want you guys to install Light Server today. npm install light-server -g. Please do that. That's the next module I want you guys to load. npm install light-server -g. That's the one. Okay. And if you get vulnerabilities, these are just local. Don't worry about them. Okay, because we're just using it as a local server. Okay. Here's the next one. So it's npm install nodemon -g. -g is global. I want to install it globally. That's what it means. So npm install nodemon -g. That's the next installation. Okay. And I'm going to go through these again in a second. Okay. So, and then there is an npm install. I want you to install TypeScript -g. Please do that. That's npm install. Yes, all the same for both Mac and Windows, please. Okay, npm install TypeScript -g. And I think this is a pretty good start, what we've got here. All right, we're going to add more modules later on, but those are the modules that I want you to use. So again, what I installed are the following modules. I'm going to type them in here. So I installed Yarn. I installed Light Server. I installed nodemon, and I installed TypeScript. Those are the 4 modules that I've installed right now. And those are the only modules I want you to install today. Okay, so again, if I was going to do the same thing for the Mac, right? So you can see that, let's pull up my Mac for a second. And I'll do the same installations. You can see Yarn, npm install nodemon -g, right? It's a bit more involved. npm install light server, right? And I've also installed, you can see that it works the same. Mac and Windows, even Linux would work the same. npm install TypeScript, right? You can see that that's all done. And that's how it would look on both Windows and Mac. Great, thank you for that, Gregory. I'm just going to pull this aside. And we're here, we're done. So now, this is good. This is a great starting place, guys. Now we have a chance to finally practice some JavaScript, okay? So if you've done all those installations, before we move on, check mark, please, in your participants panel. Check mark if you've done the installations. And if I went too slow, I apologize. I know some people are faster than me. Not yet. You can actually do a -- version if you really want to, Gregory, for each one of them. But for now, don't worry about it. Okay, so 16 out of, we still got like 10 people who haven't really verified that they're done. Can all of you verify that you've got all the installations? Because we need to move on. What's the issue, Amit? What does it give you? Thank you for the people who have given me feedback, though. Thank you for that. While Amit's telling me what it is, let's, and Rojan, same thing. But it's still installed, right? Yeah, it's okay, guys. The high severity vulnerabilities are only for local. You're not going to put it up online, so there's nothing, there's no problems like that. No, it's not a problem. All right, guys, so now let's close down our command prompt and let's launch our File Explorer window. So here's my File Explorer window. And where I'm going to put everything for you guys is my desktop. Okay, you guys can put wherever you want, but for me, it's my desktop. So here under Centennial, I have a COMP229 thing here that I have. I'm just going to, this is kind of what I had before for COMP229. I'm just going to delete all this kind of crazy stuff. Maybe it's not going to work. Haha, yes, sure. Because I don't care about all this stuff, they can do the deletion for me. But typically what I do is in Centennial, I might have a spot where I do all this kind of stuff. Usually I do it on the desktop like this. And the reason why I do it on the desktop is just easy to find, so we don't have to go too crazy. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to do clearly do my uninstallation, as I have lots and lots of gigabytes, but this is typically where I do it. So for me, I'm just going to make a brand new folder on the desktop. I'm just going to call it COMP229 when it feels like it. Let's refresh. COMP229, and it's going to be M2022. That's where mine is going to be. Let's refresh again. This is doing a bunch of moves and changes. And inside there, I'm going to use a brand new folder for today, which is going to be for you guys, week 1. So again, I'm going to make a brand new folder, and it's going to be week 1. Okay, so please use this naming convention like I have. One day when it feels like doing what I'm telling it to do. Oh yeah, I've really locked out my stuff. And if you've locked out your stuff like this, is cool. If you're on a Mac, where do you put it? There is no desktop, right? So, I mean, you could put it on the desktop too. It's fine. But typically, if you want to, you can put it anywhere you want on your machine. So let's do that. So on the Mac, while you guys are waiting, I'm going to make a brand new folder on the Mac. On the desktop, I'm going to call that comp. Oops. Let's rename that. COMP229. Right? And then just like I did before, I'm going to go into that folder, and I want to make a brand new folder called week 1. Week 1. Okay? So it's kind of the same process on both sides. All right? Okay, so then once I've done week 1, this is great. I'm going to pull up my Visual Studio Code now. Here's Visual Studio Code. Here's VS Code. And what I want to do here is I want to go into my my file explorer and just pull in, drag and drop week 1 inside of this empty space here. So I've kind of closed all my tabs in Visual Studio Code and just dragged and dropped in week 1 like so. And this is what it's going to look like, guys. Okay. On the Mac, let's go back to that Mac and see how that's going. On the Mac, it's going to be kind of similar, right? So if I have Visual Studio Code, do I even have Visual Studio Code on the Mac anymore? That's me. I don't know. I didn't expect to do this. Oh, I do have it. There it is. There's the Mac, Visual Studio Code. I want to close down the tabs, right, as an example. And then what I want to do is on the Mac, I want to go to the desktop. And I'm just going to drag and drop week 1 in here like so. And it's going to be the exact same process as Windows. Just give it a sec and you're going to see that so too you have week 1. That's on the left-hand side here. Okay. So whether you're Mac or Windows now, you're with me at this point, I think. All right, so now when you have week 1 on Windows, you have nothing in here. Well, because there's nothing in here, let's add in some basic things, okay? So what I want to do is I want to add a brand new file. We're just going to play around with Visual Studio Code. So please type in this new file, click on this plus on week 1. Alternatively, in week 1, you can right click and also go new file, whichever way you want to do it. I'm going to go just click this plus. And I'm going to type in the index.html in here like so. So that's our first file. Again, on the Mac, same process. So if I go here on the Mac, it's index.html, same thing. You can see on both sides, you're the same. Now, what if your icons, I have some icons here, they look different than yours? Okay, now this is where we can get additional support. Okay, so if you look on the left-hand side, here are extensions. And you can see I have a bunch of extensions here, like a ton of them, right? that I'm using here. Okay, so I have a ton of extensions that I can use, and the great thing about this is I have an extensions export. Okay, a VSC extensions export. So that's the first thing I want you to do. If I type in VSC extensions, right, and notice that there is a and it's a VSC extensions export is what I want to do, right? This thing here, there is an extension called VSC export and import. Please go there where it says VSC export and import. I don't know if you guys can see that. No, Emmett, please use Visual Studio Code. Because I can't cover, Atom as well. And Visual Studio Code, in my opinion, is better than Atom as a code editor. But that's up to you if you really want to. But this is what I want you guys to download: VSC export and import. Okay, and if you download this, the way you go is you search for it up here, VSC export and import, and then you just click install, and it's automatically installed for you. So for example, on the Mac, if I was to do that, because I don't have it here, I could just type in VSC import. If I type that in by itself, import and export, it's right here. Here it is, VSC export and import. And if I click install, it's just going to be that quick to install. It's done. So why am I telling you to do this? Well, because this is a beautiful thing. What I can do is I can export my extensions, right? So, and you can import your extensions. So again, what I can do is I can extension install whatever I want. I can also do I can export all my extensions as well. So one thing that import and export does for you is it allows me to export all my extensions. And what I'll do later on today, because I don't have time to do it right now, is I'm going to, well, I can actually do this now let's just do it. So Control-Shift-P, this is how it's going to look for me. You don't have to do this. This is for me only. And I can just type in, VSC export, and you can see that it's going to export my extensions. Okay, there we go. And I think it's going to place it inside of my downloads folder. I don't even know where I put it. Maybe put it in week 1. Maybe it did that under the desktop. Maybe it did that. Just give me one sec, guys. Did it? It did. Okay, so this VSC extensions, I'm just going to put that up on the course shell. Here's my reasoning for this. If we go to this, so I'm going to go to content, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to my live session for week 1, right here. I'm going to put a brand new file in here, which is this VSC extensions right here for week 1. And please, what I want you to do is you can use the VSC extensions import to import all of my extensions, right? So why am I telling you to do this? Because I have a lot of extensions you may not need. Who cares? Just get them all from Visual Studio Code. And then you and I are going to have the exact same look and feel if you did that. VSC extensions, please, right? So what do I mean by that? How do I use it? How do I install VSC extensions, right? How do I do that? Hello, Justice. How you doing? So what I would do then is go back into Visual Studio Code, press Control-Shift-P, and then you can see if I do a VSC extension import, right, then I can look for the files, the extensions that I already have. If you've already imported them, it's not going to import any new ones because it's going to say already installed, right? So it's going to do all this. Because all of my extensions have already been installed, it's not going to reinstall stuff that's not already there. All right, so please make sure you do this. You're going to see a bunch of things like this. There's a lot of them. And the great thing about doing it this way is, I'm just going to kind of close this down now, is that you and I are going to have the exact same extensions, which is pretty awesome. Okay. So it's going to take a bit of time because it's going to go alphabetical. So you can see that there's a lot of them happening, but they install everything for you, which is pretty cool. Which means all these extensions, as an example, for example, that if you want to make a lot of times I get questions from students. They're like, Professor, I don't see what you see. I see this thing. I don't see a line colorizer, or I don't see my editor looks different than yours, or whatever. Now you and I can have the exact same look and feel, whether you're a Mac or a Windows user, it doesn't matter. Okay? Which is pretty cool. That's why I've given you this list. So please do that. I'm going to wait just for a second for this thing to resolve because I've started this craziness off, and it's going to continue doing it until it's done, even though you can see that I already have all these extensions. It's just checking to see if I can do them all. So while this is working, I'm going to talk about what I want to do with my index.html here. I'll let that thing go. And maybe you have already installed it. Yes, please download the text file, put it inside of your project, and then do Control-Shift-P. If you issue a Control-Shift-P after you've installed the extension, then what you can do is you can use that's what I did to get that up. So if I type Control-Shift-P, it brought up the list. I can just use that extension, that first extension that I asked you to get, and I can do a VSC extensions import as long as I have the file VSC extensions.txt inside of my week 1. It will install all of your extensions for you, which is pretty awesome. So you don't have to go through one by one like I've done in the past. Okay? And I think this is probably done. Yeah, it is. Awesome. All right, so have you done that? Have you installed all your extensions? If you have, check mark. If you haven't, X. Or if you have a problem, X. Yeah, I know it takes time. Paul, is it a problem, Paul, or? I know, I'm so sorry. Gregory says I have a lot. You're waiting for install. No problem. I'm going to wait until you guys are ready to go. Because I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and it won't show me extensions. That's interesting. So again, if I was going to do it on the Mac side, let's see if I can do it on the Mac side as well. I wonder if I can. I don't think I can drag and drop here. I'm just going to have to log in. 1 second, guys. While I log in, I got to just use my credentials. That's why I'm not showing the screen. Almost done. And I'm also remoting in, so it's going to take a little bit longer than if I was going to do it. All right, there we go. Looks like it's good. So yes, so here's my Mac side. So again, what I can do is, here's that VSC extensions file. I can download it. And let's put it on our desktop. And week 1 for the Mac. You're going to notice that when you install stuff on the desktop side, then what's going to happen is on the inside of your folder structure, it mirrors whatever you put in there immediately. All right, so there's no delay or anything like that. So here it is. So let's do that same command. So if I issue a Control-Shift-P on the Mac, can I even do that? Maybe I have to type in run. Maybe I just got to do it on my Mac. Hold on a second here. Control-Shift-P. Or Command-Shift-P. It's Command-Shift-P on the Mac. There we go. And I'm going to type in VSC extensions import. And it should do that whole thing on the Mac as well. Whether it's there, it's going to do its thing. So that's how it would work on both Windows and Mac. Okay, so you can see that works the same. All right, so hopefully most of you have got that done. You have to create the index.html file, Roshan. Yeah. All right, how are we doing, guys? For those people who have you installed the extensions now? Check mark if you've installed them. I'm just trying to check that out again. And I know this is installation day, but I wanted to do that. I'm so sorry, UN. I know it's taking time. How about I've got 6 people right now that have installed. Is there anyone else who's finished installing the extensions? I know this is not really required, but I'm telling you this because I think it's going to make your journey this semester a little easier. Okay, I know it's installing. It's taking time. Okay, good. And if you're a Mac person, it can take quite a bit of time to do. You can see that it's trying to install certain pieces, right? So it's going through, it's going to install a bunch of them, and that's fine, right? But I think the great thing about this installation process is, like, again, I'm not going to go through there and tell you, well, these are all the things I'm installing, right? Does it give me actually files? What does it give me here? A bunch of empty files. That's interesting. These are just log files. We're going to remove them in a sec. That's different on the Mac than it is on Windows, that's for sure. All right, let's close this off now and move on. So in your index.html, right, let's go back to this. While that is installing, leave that aside, guys. Yes, it's for game programming, Gregory. And you can, again, one thing, guys, it's easier for us to remove stuff than to add things in manually. It takes too long. All right, so on index.html, okay, come back to this now, guys. Focus with me now, okay? Because I know we were worried about extensions. Let's leave the extensions do their work. You can leave that in its own tab. It shouldn't bother you too much. But what I want you to do here is in your index.html, I want you to type in HTML. And if you start typing, you should see some options. And these options are Emmet abbreviations. We're going to learn some Emmet this semester as well. If I type in HTML:5, like so, and press tab, the tab key, I get all of this immediately. Let me undo that. I can just press Control or Command Z. And if I do that, or Z, I can do the same thing again. I can type that in, okay? So how do I get this? It's built into Visual Studio Code. It's called Emmet. And I'm going to bring up what that looks like. For Emmet syntax, I think it's on emmet.io. Yeah, this is the link for it. Again, I'm moving on, guys, for those people who are waiting for their extensions to be installed. We don't need them. I'm just putting them in there for you so that way you guys have the same look and feel like I do, okay? So emmet.io is a great place for documentation about how Emmet works. It's built into to Visual Studio Code. So if I wanted to generate something like this, instead of me typing HTML the long way and typing each one of these things in here, I literally would just have to type something like this. And this one line translates to this. So it does perfect code for us. So how does this work? The hashtag is an ID, right? That's what this piece is right here, right? Page is the ID name. That's what this is. Div, and then greater than sign for when we start typing, it means I want to inject, or inside of the page div tag, right? Inside of the page div tag, I want to put in another div tag, which is right here, this one. And it's going to have a dot. Dot means class. Again, if you know CSS, this same syntax is the way that CSS would work as well, right? So dot means class, so this is class, and then logo is the name of the class, right? So so that's how this works in terms of how it structures stuff. If you see a plus, it means next to. So for example, I make a div tag with a hashtag with a class of logo, and then next to that I want a UL. Next to that I want a UL with an ID of navigation. A UL with an ID of navigation. That's how it works. And inside of that UL, I want 5 list items, right? And inside of those list items, I want an anchor tag with that has a, in curly braces means the text content, and $ for emit means put in a number, like an incrementing number. So that's why it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why it generates all this. It's an amazing quick way or shortcut to type in HTML. And it's built into Visual Studio Code. You can also install it in other places as well. Sublime Text 2, Eclipse, and I even think Atom has it now too. But that is pretty cool in terms of the way it works. If you go to syntax for abbreviations, it tells you what it does. So greater than means child. So there's a child of. A plus means sibling. You can also climb up one level if you want to, go down and climb back up. Okay, that's something that you can do as well. And a bunch of other things. Please read this as it's going to help you in terms of how we make things work. So for going back to Visual Studio Code now, it's an amazing tool again. And what we've done is we've installed this part. What I want to continue, I want to change the document title. Let's change the document title to COMP229. Okay, that's what we want to do. And I want to put some comments just to remind you how this works. Comments work like this. So less than, greater, exclamation mark, dash, dash. And this will be somewhere where we can put our CSS. Usually CSS is put at the top inside of our head element, okay? And then usually a lot of times we put our JavaScript down here. So this is kind of a JavaScript section. This is where we put our JavaScript down here, okay? Typically. So this is our HTML. And typically with HTML, with our index.html, by the way, once you've done doing your extensions, you can delete this. We don't need this anymore. And any other files that it installs for you that you don't need, you can also get rid of. So if it installed, like on the Mac side, it did weird stuff for me. I'm not sure if it did it for you, that extension on the Mac, but it installed a bunch of different things. It's still doing its installation on the Mac. It looks like it's still going, right? But if it's still going like this, and if it installs any extra things like this, you can get rid of them, because really what it's supposed to be is it's installing them here. That's where the installations are going. So you can see that these are all have been installed. You can see that that is something that's happening. Sometimes it'll say reload is required. That's okay. We can just reload a lot of the stuff, but you can see a lot of this has already been installed for me, right? There's my stuff that's been installed. And if it's in the process of getting installed, then it's going to show it here as well, okay? So don't panic. You know, again, if you really want to, you can always reload, you know, as an example. So you can kind of totally do that here. Restart to update is what it says. That means I have to update my Visual Studio Code, but that'll also update things as I go. All right, cool. So now this is the extensions. I'm just going to delete them. So I don't need them anymore. You have the extensions file, this file, you have it up on your code shell, your course shell anyway. So I really don't need it. And when I come back to Visual Studio Code, you can see that if I've installed all my extensions, I have a bunch of these files, you know, as an example. And if I don't need them, like all these, I can just get rid of them. You know, I don't need all this stuff. It gave me a bunch of extra stuff, you know, that I didn't need, you know, as an example. So, you know, I can go through here and delete the stuff that doesn't make any sense for me, right? So anything that doesn't need any sense, it's kind of still, I think it's still going through its installation process personally. But anything like that, you know. By the way, if you ever have a thing, and if you're thinking that this will be too slow for you to do, remember that you can always do a lot of these operations in your file system, because Visual Studio Code and your file system are the same. They're kind of like one-to-one in terms of how it works. So like I said, I've installed pretty much everything else in here. And if you really want to check, you can go through these extensions later. I'm just going to, just move this over. All right, so now that I have this, yay, we're pretty good to go. So the emit command for this again, it would be just HTML5. By the way, you can do it again. If I do HTML5, it'll just do it again. There's HTML5. All right, HTML:5. That'll be the emmet command. All right, so I have this. This is the first part, and I have this stuff that I've defined, which is my CSS section and my JavaScript section. I want to add a folder now on the left-hand side. I want to add a new folder called scripts. Here's my scripts folder. And I also want to add another folder outside of the scripts folder. But what if I made a mistake? Let's make a mistake. Let's say you left it here. Notice that this is highlighted here in Visual Studio Code, and I added a new folder. Now this folder here is inside of scripts by accident. That's okay. Let's make a new one called content, and it's inside. You can see that it looks like it's inside, like something like this. You can always just drag and drop it. So I can take the content folder by accident if I put it there, and then I can drag and drop it over here. And you can see that now it kind of, changes it in terms of the way it works. So there's content and scripts, and I can add another folder in there. So content, scripts, and a lot of times what I also like to put in is assets. Let's put in an assets folder as well. So assets are like things like images and those kind of things, okay? So assets, content, and scripts. Okay, those are the three folders that I have here. I have an index.html, and inside of my scripts folder, I want to put a new file. So I want to click on the file. I want to put in a new file called app.css. This is kind of my, here I'll put in some comments, which is custom CSS goes here. Is that where the CSS file goes? I made a mistake. That's okay, because now I can just drag and drop that app.css inside of my content folder, right? Which is where it belongs. Some people like to put a folder that says CSS and then app.css. I like to call it content because it's more cross-platform compatible, okay? And some people put in JS instead of scripts, but scripts can be more than just JavaScript. So that's why I don't put JS, okay? And I don't like putting assets or images and audio in the main root. I like to put it inside of assets. So a lot of times my folder structure will have something like audio, and also in assets, I might also have something like, instead of audio, I also might have images. So you can see this is my folder structure that is typical. Assets, images, content, app, CSS, and under scripts, I have my app.js. Let's put that in there, app.js. Okay, so this is your folder structure so far, guys. I have my index.html, and I have this folder structure. Can you please make that happen? Go. Make sure that you have the same folder structure that I have. Doesn't matter if you're Windows or Mac. And again, on Mac, it's the exact same. There's no difference in terms of our process. So again, I can add in a new folder called scripts. I can add a new folder called content. If I can type, which I can't. I can add a new folder called assets, and inside my scripts folder I want a new file called app.js. Inside of my content I want a new file called app.css, and inside of my assets I want two new folders, one of them called images and another one called audio. Typically if I have audio for whatever reason. Nope, you have an extension that creates the history folder. It's totally fine. I've disabled that extension because I don't like the history extension, but it's there for me too. So if I was to look at history, right? So it has a Git history, right? And a lot of times it'll put in information inside there as well. I don't like putting that in, or Git file history. I've turned it off. All right, so yeah, so that is all of this, and you can see that this is our folder structure. Whether it's Mac or Windows, it's the exact same. So now, are you with me? Do you have this and do you have this? Here, I'll copy paste this part inside of your chat so you have the exact same thing as me, because we need to move on. And we need to move on, guys, because I want you guys to, to get into it. with me, a little bit of code today. Not too much, but a little bit of code before we move on. And we're kind of timing out. It's already 10:07. That's how long it takes for us to do the installation, right? All right, you got 8 out of, how did I open editors? What do you mean? All this? What editors are you talking about? Oh, this. Once I start typing it, if I click on there, I get it. I immediately opens it up. All right, so if I'm typing app.js or app.css, it opens it up. Yeah, that's what it does. So I can close them off, right? If I double click on any one of these things, it'll open it up, right? Like that. Okay. And if I close them off here, it closes them off up here. All right, so I want to go into my index.html. And under my index.html, I want to make a reference to my script. So it's going to be script and then colon source. And it's going to look like this. I want to type in ./scripts/app.js. Okay, so that's my new line in my HTML file. Right here, this one right here. Okay, so this is the one I just typed. And thank you for that feedback, guys. So what this does is, remember, this is some review for you guys for HTML. What this does is it injects, the browser injects your HTML right here on line 13. Okay, so it goes through and it injects it right in there. Okay, save. And that's index.html. But there's nothing in my app.js, right? There's nothing inside of here. So let's put in some new code. Here's the new code for today. And the new code for today is going to look funny at first, but it is an iffy. I'll be okay. Here's my iffy. And the iffy looks like this. Let's type this code in here for a second. All right. So this is the iffy. And I want you to tell me what this stands for. What is an iffy? Does anyone know what this is? I cover it in the videos, but what this stands for is an immediately invoked. There we go. Someone's telling me. There we go. Thank you for that. An immediately invoked function expression, which is really easy, which is also it's also known as, right, an anonymous self-executing function, which is basically what this is. So you see the function is right here, right? This part. And then I'm executing that function by using these brackets at the end. Okay, that's what's happening. All right, so I'm executing this function anonymously. It's self-executing. All right, so what I want to put in here is a new function called start. And I also want to use a little event handler, which you guys should know about, which is the window add event listener on load. I want to load the start function. That's what this thing is. All right. So window is the window object, right? And add event listener is the method that allows us to attach an event listener to the window object. We're listening for the load event. That's the load of, so when the window loads is what we're saying. And then it's pointing to a callback function. And this callback function is a named function, which is called start. Well, let's do a little console log that says something like app started. Right, there we go. Something like that. And that is what's going to run when we run our application. App started. Awesome. So now that you have this, this is my little code. I'm just going to grab this code, copy it. This is my inside my app.js. I'm going to put it inside of our chat so you guys have it as well. There it is. Okay. If I'm typing faster than you, just copy it from there. And what's happened is, because I've got my index.html and I'm using this right here, this is connecting my app.js to my index.html. Many times, my index.html is my manifest or my entry point for the entire application. That's how it works. I can do the same thing for my CSS file. I can do the same thing, but I can have to use a link CSS. And then again, what I can do is I can type in ./content/app.css. And that's the command, if you will, to attach my custom CSS file right here. Right? And I put that in there in my head section. Again, pretty straightforward stuff, right? So in my body, what I want is an h1 tag, right? That just says something like hello world. Right? This is my hello world. And that's my HTML. Now to run this thing, this is great. And this is the next part. We're going to have some errors. I want to use my built-in terminal window. Okay, so Visual Studio Code comes with a built-in terminal, right? And the way to get that is you can get it in a couple ways. You can go to View, and if you can go to Terminal, and the shortcut is Control plus backtick. The backtick character is the character underneath your escape key. Okay, the backtick character. It's not a quotation mark or a apostrophe. It's a backtick. Okay. So if I press Control and backtick, it brings up my little terminal window like this. Okay. And I can toggle it on and off, guys, like this. No problem. Or I can go to Terminal, New Terminal. It'll also give me a new terminal window. All right. Like so. And I'm just going to eliminate this for a second. So here's my terminal window. All right. So now this is where you might encounter some issues. I'm going to type in the terminal window. Notice that the path from my terminal window is C:users, my name, OneDrive, desktop, Centennial, my folder COMP229 M2022, week 1. This should be something similar for you because you're targeting this application that's inside my week 1. Okay. And then I'm just going to type in light-server. Now this is where people get errors. Let's see if you get your errors too. Enter. When we do, if I did everything properly, if everything has been installed correctly, we're going to get this. Hello world. Okay? Are you with me? Notice that I have this coming up and we have hello world that looks like this. Okay? And it should pop up with your default browser. On a Mac, it should look very similar to this as well. So if I go back to the Mac, here's my Mac, and let's type all that stuff really quickly in there. So again, what I did on Windows is I type in HTML5, right? I changed the title to COMP229. Oop. I also put in some comments, which is this is the CSS section, right? And I attach my CSS in here by putting in a link CSS. Right? And I have in my header an h1 tag that says hello world. Right? And down below, I have I know I'm going slow, guys. I'm so apologize for some people. I know that you guys are like, when he's doing it again. Yes, I am. Because I want you guys to be on with me. Right? And again, it's a script source ./scripts/app.js. I've attached everything. This is the exact same now on Windows as well as Mac. File save. And the only thing that's missing is my app.css. I don't have the same thing, which means I want to put an iffy, right? I'm not going to type that out, but it's going to look something like, it looks like this. And I'm going to put a function called start, which is going to be a console log. Right? And I want to do window.add event listener. Again, you can see it's the exact same thing. Not click load. That would have been funny. And there we go. You can see how that lights up it was dimmed out like so, dimmed out. But when I typed it in, when I typed start, it lit up, right? That's a typical thing for Visual Studio Code to do. It gives you kind of visual feedback for the user. All right, and then I did control backtick and I typed in light server. And when I did that, if everything goes well, then it should pull up your default browser that looks like this. Okay, are you with me? Did you guys, were you guys able to do that with me? I know we're running behind, guys. Bear with me. Panth said no. Famid said no. Why can't you guys do it? Yes, no problem. This part? Is it the same for you? Do you want me to copy paste this again? I think I've copied and pasted already in the chat. Control backtick. Backtick. That's what I want to see, Panth. That's what I want to see. Where you have a executed because of disabled on the system. There is a an execution fix for that. Okay. So when you get this error that says it says that running scripts execution policy in Visual Studio Code, right? So if I type that, here's the fix. That's why I wanted to show you this, because you're going to get this error for the first time. So you're going to go into running scripts is disabled on the system, VS Code. This is the link for this. Here's a Stack Overflow fix for it, and it tells you what to do. You have to go into your, this is only for Windows people, by the way, I believe. You have to go into your execution policy for, here it is, this part right here. This is the perfect place to go. Into PowerShell, this piece right here is what you have to do. You have to actually type in set execution policy to execution policy remote signed local machine, right? And that will fix your issue. Okay, you have to run this as administrator. All right, so that is the fix. And this is the Stack Overflow issue to help you with that problem. Okay, so there's your Stack Overflow issue. So why is that? What it does is it's a security policy thing in PowerShell that allows you to do that. In order for you to do this, guys, you need to shut down temporarily your Visual Studio Code and relaunch it in order for you to make this work a lot of times. Okay, but this execution policy issue is something that is very common that we get from the very first moment. So that's why I've shown you this fix. It should be done within PowerShell. So again, what you do is you type in PowerShell here, right? And you want to type it as, you want to run it as administrator, all right? So this is only for, this is a Windows thing only, all right? And when you run it as administrator, you're in the administrative PowerShell, which looks like this, all right? And then you just type in this set execution policy right here. And that should do it for you, okay? So it changes your execution policy on your machine. You can always turn it back on, okay? But you need to restart, you will need to restart your Visual Studio Code. Okay, after you've done that, are you guys in order now? So that's Famid and Alexandru, Panth, and anybody else who had that issue. Are you guys fixed? Amit says no. Amit, what problem are you experiencing? Because that should be the issue. That should fix your problem. Alternatively, if you can't run scripts in here, that would be sad, because we're going to be actually running a lot of scripts in here over the next little while. You need to fix this problem. It's a very common problem on Windows, on the Windows side. As you can see on the Mac side, no problems. I don't have that same execution policy issue. It's working just fine, right? But on the Windows side, it does have that issue unless you take care of it. Good, thank you, Amit. How about Alexandru and Amit and Panth? Are you guys fixed? I want you guys to fix your issue, please. Oh, Paul, don't worry about that. Remember that iffy is a comment, right? So this is a comment, right? It's not Fife. It's funny, right? You can add iffy to user settings if you want. It'll take away that thing. It's kind of a code hint for us. All good now. Excellent. All right, so now that you've run this thing and it's running, right, what we can do is we can run it side by side, which is why I wanted to show you this. When we're running things with Windows, what we can do is we can run it side by side. So if I press the command button and then left arrow, it'll push Visual Studio Code on the left. And then what you can do is you can have your browser with the command button and right arrow so that it's on the right, right? So left and right. Now this is a beautiful thing with this, right? If I go back to my index.html here, and if I change this from hello world to goodbye world, right, and press save, immediately you're going to see the update on the right side because we have something called browser sync working between the two things. Okay, if I want to change it back, right, and press save, you can see that it immediately changes back to hello world. Okay, by the way, it works the same way on a Mac, but you have to use command instead of control. Okay, so this is really great. And for local Windows on the front end, you can see that that's what we've done here, very, very simply. But what about our app.js, which we had this little app started? Where do we see that? Well, if you click on your browser here on the right-hand side, if you press in Control-Shift-J, you'll see that the console window comes in. That's Control-Shift-J, guys. Control-Shift-J. Control-Shift-J, and you'll get right into the browser. On a Mac, I think it's the same commands, but it's a command instead of a control. So again, if I was going to do the same thing, no, it's not the same bindings. I want to kind of pull my my Mac side like so. Sorry, I have remote access only, so I can't do some of the commands that I want to do, but that's okay. So in order for me to show both things on the screen at the same time, it's pretty tricky. All right, so you can see that that is the case for the Mac. And again, you can see it works the exact same way. If I type in goodbye and press save, then you can see that that updates. It should update automatically. And same thing if I put in hello, right? There it goes. So you see hello and goodbye. Control-Shift-J. Again, it's the same thing as Command-Shift-J instead of Control-Shift-J. I don't think I can do it. Sorry, but the biggest issue with this is the my patterns. See if I can do this. Control. It's a different command on the Mac. But you can get to that if you go to inspect, right? That's another way of getting to it. If you go to inspect and press console, that's another way of viewing the same thing. So that's how to get to your dev tools. Okay. So notice that app started on both sides, on either a Mac, right? Or if you're looking at Windows, it's the same. You see the app started right here. If I change this, so if I say something like my app started, and if I press save, you can see that immediately it's going to do the same thing here, right? So it does both on the JavaScript side as well as the Windows side. I'm running it on Chrome, and the way to run it on Chrome is to make Chrome your default. And I don't use Edge in general. F12. Thank you, Gregory, for that. I don't use Edge. I use Chrome as my default. So you have to change your default browser for Windows. And you can do that if you want to set default programs, I believe. Set default web browser. You can choose a different web browser in your Windows system. You can do that. So for me, it's Chrome, right? And that's how it's going to come up. All right, so any questions so far with what we've done? I'm just getting you going on stuff, guys, because this is the first part. If you can't use your tool, which is Visual Studio Code, we're going to have a problem. And what I want to do is talk about very, very quickly over the next 2 minutes, a little bit about what we did. So here on the left in JavaScript, we have a function, and the function is called start. This is a named function, okay? And there's different ways of writing the same function. I could have written this function in a different way. I could have written it like this. Okay? This is the same effect. If I save it, there's no difference, okay, in terms of effect. However, these are two different things, okay? This now, start, if you notice what tells us in Visual Studio Code, start says it points to a function that returns void. That's what start is, okay? Function, if I hover over function, function is a local function that returns void. That is what it is, how it looks as well. And there's also a little code hint. This little light bulb pops up and it says, let's convert it to an arrow function. That's the third type of function. It can look like this. So that is the 3 different types of functions. I can have a named function, right, which was this. That's the first type, right? A local function with the name of start, returning void, right? I can have a function that is, and again, by the way, Visual Studio Code will recommend going to something like an arrow function, right, as an example as well, all right? So that's something that it'll ask us to do if you want to. But the other way to do it is we can use the let keyword, right, and function to do that as well. Let start equal to function. So here what we're saying is start is pointing to an anonymous function, okay? So I'm just going to annotate this for a second for you guys. This is kind of our meat and potatoes of why we're here, if you will. So this points to this. That's what this does, right? And so now start has a reference, right, to this anonymous function. So this anonymous function here, right, this thing right here, right, is being pointed to by start, okay? It's a different scenario than what we had before. And so guys, what do you think is most common? Do you think this is most common or the other way is most common? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this one before I move on? Again, I know I'm timing out, guys. Please bear with me for another minute, and then at least I've accomplished what I wanted to talk about with you. So Parth says he thinks the other way is most common. Anyone else have any other kind of, thoughts? In fact, this is becoming the most common way of writing a function. And yeah, I would have liked to see it the other way. For our sensibilities as C# programmers or Java programmers, we want to see it where we have function and then start. But this is becoming a very, very common way of writing things, right? Notice I'm not using the keyword var. Var, my friends, right? I want to let you know that from now on in my course, right? var is not allowed. Please do not use var in anything that you do from here on in, okay? So anytime we write any JavaScript together, there's no more var. Why is there no more var? How come we don't want to use var anymore in JavaScript? Anybody? Why don't we want to use var? Function scope. Yeah. Yeah, I know you did. I know you guys use var, right? Because what var does is it actually does something called hoisting, right? So if I write var here, right, it actually hoists it up to the top. And where it's really weird, happens with a for loop. Okay, here's where it really happens, and it's really weird in a for loop. I'm just going to change this function here so it's the way we wrote it before. Let's just write it as a function because you guys are more comfortable this way. That's perfectly fine with me. Right? If I run a for loop here, let's run a for loop, guys. And the way to run a for loop is just literally just type in for, and then notice that there are some options here on the left-hand side. Click on the for, the first one. It'll actually run a for loop here. And let's run a for loop, and I'm just going to maximize the JavaScript side for a second. Oops. There we go. And I'm just going to remove some of these elements here just to show you what this does. Okay, let's change this to a var and index 0, where index is less than, let's just call it 10. All right. And we're using var instead of let, okay, as an example. And I want to do a console log, right, index, which really should be just printing 0 to 9, right? And if I was to do that, and if I go back to my browser, which is here, you can see that certainly I get that exact thing. This sequence goes from 0 to 9 in the browser window, and that's exactly what we would expect. But here's what we wouldn't expect. What about if I pressed out console log index? Shouldn't that be undefined at this point? Okay, shouldn't that be undefined? It should be, right? Because functional scope says that when we write a for loop, right, if I define var inside my for loop, then it lives and dies inside this function, right? And for most languages, C++, Java, C#, and other languages, it's true. But unfortunately, it's not true with JavaScript, right? So if I was to write this and I go back out, you can see here I have 10. And you can see that this is line 18. Here, I'll even prove it to you, right? Where I can say something like wrong, right? Right, there's wrong. This should not be there. We should not have 10. That's incorrect. That's terrible. Come on, guys. That shouldn't work. But what happens if I replace var with a let, right? If I push var and let here, and if I do that, now we get this reference error, which is exactly what we want. We want this reference error. Guys, never use var in your life from now on, okay? Ever. Not in JavaScript. Sometimes in C# it's okay. var, we can use var in C# and even in Swift as implicitly typed variable declaration. But here inside JavaScript, if you use a var, it's not good. Okay, it's not good to use in modern JavaScript. We never use var as much as possible. Please don't do it. Okay, because you're going to get this really weird thing happening. Again, look at the difference. It computes. It doesn't compute, which is what it should work. This is the error we should be getting something like this, right? So please do it this way. Please use let instead of var. Okay. All right, so that is why we're using let from now on. That is an important thing to do, and that is kind of your first lesson in JavaScript. We're going to be learning a lot this semester, right? And next week, what we're going to be doing is putting this up on GitHub. I'm not doing it this week because I want to wait for more joiners. There's going to be more people that are going to be joining us next week because I know some people join late, they kind of register late and so on. So we might have some more people coming up, but this is kind of your first lesson in JavaScript. Any questions around this whole thing? And I've kind of introduced to you the ecosystem that we're going to be using. We're using Visual Studio Code. We're using our terminal window that's integrated into Visual Studio Code. We're probably going to do some kind of side-by-side viewing like this, where you're going to see your app.js on the left side and hello world on the right side and so on. The last step, if you can do this, this is on you to do. And again, I'm going to go through this next week again, but how do I put this up on GitHub? Let's put this up on GitHub. So for GitHub, the way I would do it is I want to go to, and all my stuff is going to be on GitHub for you guys, right? So I'm going to go here on GitHub, and GitHub, we have a GitHub repository here, which is this. This is our repository for all things GitHub, right? Centennial College. Yes, I own it. No, I don't own Centennial College. but I do own the organization, Centennial College on GitHub. It was the first. And I'm going to make a brand new repository here. Let's do that. So let's make a brand new repository. We're going to call this COMP229 in the summer 2022 semester. And you guys are section 2, right? So this is where section 2 is going to go. I'm going to make it a public repository here. And I'm going to click on create repository. And what that's going to do is it's going to make an empty repository for me. I'm going to go through this again with you guys next week. An empty repository for me, and it's going to give me some steering instructions that look like this. Well, I can do that here. So let's add in another terminal window. You can add as many terminal windows, by the way, as you want by clicking the plus button here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in some of these instructions. So I'm going to say git init, git add dot, which means add everything, git commit -m, and I'll call this initial commit. And then what I want to do is I want to grab the last 3 lines of code here from our repository that I created on GitHub. I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to go to Windows or Mac and right-click, and then enter. And what it's going to do is going to push my repository, my local files up online. So now if I refresh, you're going to see that everything we did today is here. But notice what we lost. We have our content folder and we have our scripts folder, right? And our index.html, but we don't have my assets, audio, and images. And the reason for this is because audio is empty. There's nothing inside of it. And there's nothing inside of images. For me to keep my file structure, I need to add in a couple of empty files. One of them is called a .gitkeep. Okay, and I can just add in these 2 empty files in here, the same thing, .gitkeep. And now that I have something in there, it's just empty files, so I can retain my folder structure. I can put this up on GitHub again. And you can do it in 2 ways, using the command line, or you can use the integrated tool set that's here. If I use the integrated tool set, I want to click the check mark up here at the top, right? And then what I want to do is add in a friendly message. Added gitkeep for empty folders, right? That's what I want to do, right? Always. And then once I've done that, I can sync my changes, right? And it'll push things up online. And if I go back here and I refresh, you can see that now I have my assets folder too. Okay. I will send the Discord link again. Yes, absolutely. So notice that assets, content, and scripts and index.html are here. Anything that I've done with you is right here. You can always follow along online. And this is what we're doing this week. I'm going to take this link here, right? And I'm going to place it on our course shell, where whenever you feel like it, I don't know how this opened up. Whenever you feel like it, you can go up in our course shell and take a look. Okay. I know, guys, we ran way over time, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys stood by us for the first day. But it's important to know how to do this kind of stuff because so that's why I've gone through it in so much detail. And Rojan, if you can go to the live shell and click on the Discord invite. I can't really click onto it because it won't work. Any questions before we go for the day? So guys, just to recap, what we did today was we installed a bunch of stuff. We installed VS Code, Git and GitHub. We didn't do MongoDB. We'll do that another time, but we did install Light Server, NodeMon, TypeScript. We did not install the Express generator. We'll do that another time as well. But we did a lot of the stuff that I said that we're going to do. We also talked about a little bit of IFI. What is an IFI? What are fat arrow functions? A little bit about version control. And we're going to do more of that next week. So this is kind of your intro into our course, COMP229. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And we're going to have more of this happening. You can always watch the video if you missed something. Please practice every day when we start getting going. The best way to learn about all this is to practice. There is no better way to be a good coder. Any questions before we go for the day? Yep. Every single time we record, there is a video that's recorded and it's automatically done. So if you look here at the up here on our live session for week 1, there is this video right here. I'm going to just rename it. So you can see this is our lecture video. That's what this is, but that's what it is. And you can watch it live, right? Or if you want to, you can also watch it. You can also watch it after the fact if you miss something. Okay. Any other questions before we go for the day? I'm going to stop recording on YouTube, and then I'll take questions from people that are here. Thank you.